Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Best Words. Texas Republicans passed an utterly draconian anti abortion bill, and the Supreme Court refused to rule on the legality of it. This goes beyond just criminalizing abortion. What they did here was utterly remove due process from the equation and create essentially a bounty system where the benefit of the doubt goes to someone making an accusation towards anyone who may be involved in providing an abortion. So what does that mean? So if you're a Lyft or Uber driver, if you're the receptionist at Planned Parenthood, if you're a travel agent who helps someone fly out of state to get an abortion, you can now be sued in Texas for $10,000 by essentially a snitch, a bounty hunter. This resembles nothing so much as the Fugitive Slave Act, one of the most evil pieces of legislation in American history, where the benefit of the doubt was taken away from free African Americans in the North could be a slave catcher could come to the North, say that one he ran away, and the legal burden of proof was on the person who said they were free, and so it incentivized people to kidnap free African Americans and bring them to the South and enslave them. Is that a facile or a over gross comparison? You always want to be extremely careful comparing anything to slavery. But what we're doing here, what Texas is doing here, is setting up a bounty system where there is no due process. What could go wrong? This is absolutely going to fly out of hand. I do hope that the young generation weaponizes this against the Republicans. I would love every single GOP, legislator in Texas, Governor Abbot, and anyone, any mega church pastor, you name it, who supported this bill, to have their lives ruined by it. I think that would be terrific, and I hope that the kids today are smart enough to figure that out. I also want to point out the Supreme Court was absolutely cowardly, actually refused to. They didn't say the law was okay. They said they're not going to rule on it, but they don't want to, anyone to interpret that as saying that it is okay. So the Supreme Court punted because they don't actually want to rule against this law. This is the, multi-decade culmination of the right wing's war on abortion through the courts. The politics of this, however, give me a little bit of optimism. So, okay, what do I mean by that? Fox News has not commented on this once, right? This was all over, the progressive Twitter. This was all over MSNBC. This is all over. Anyone who cares about reproductive rights was talking about this bill and how horrific it is. Fox didn't say one word about it. Not one word. You know why? Because the politics of it are atrocious for Republicans. There are a lot of suburban Republican women who I think are going to hold their nose and vote for Democrats going forward because nobody wants to vote for the Handmaid's Tale people. We have, as a society, sort of, especially as Democrats, conceded the essential ickiness of abortion to the right, and I think that was always a tactical mistake, and we are learning from that. So here's what I mean by that. We have the Hyde Amendment, which prevents federal money from being used in an abortion. 8 years of Obama, he never did away with that amendment, although Biden finally has. Because if you agree to that, okay, no federal money for abortion, you're conceding right wing framing that abortion is something that is problematic, right? And you also have people making the case that abortion is healthcare. We talk about, ectopic pregnancies, and there are times when abortion is absolutely 100% medically necessary to save the life of the mother. The fetus is unviable anyway. If it's not removed, the mother will die. And that's fine to talk about that. But if you talk about that as the primary reason to keep abortion legal, I think that's a mistake because, again, we fundamentally concede the moral issue of abortion to the right, saying, okay, yeah, it's problematic, but sometimes it's healthcare. The correct move, I think, strategically, and one that I am happily seeing a lot of from our side, is not wishy-washy. Okay, abortion's a problem, but it just stand on our principles and say, look, abortion's none of your goddamn business. Every woman has a right to it, whether or not her pregnancy is putting her in danger. Period. End of story. So this is again hopefully a political disaster for the Republican Party. It's a judicial minefield. It is just a cessation of due process for a criminalized act. It's the equivalent of really the Stasi system in East Germany: rat out your neighbors and win a prize. So this is very troubling, and I'm interested to hear what your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about, it's their right no matter what, and that's what Roe v. Wade, uh, enumerated. Kind of like, it's not that you'll have like a right to abortion; it's that it's your private matter between you and your doctor, right? That's essentially what was decided in that court case. And it's kind of funny because Kavanaugh had talked about Roe v. Wade, and he was saying, "Oh, it's settled law." But every time it seems like they need to make a decision on something, they either punt it or they're showing, specifically Kavanaugh, he's kind of showing the opposite reaction, that Roe v. Wade should be overturned or something like that. But he doesn't want to say that because Roe v. Wade is actually very popular. I believe I read a study that 63% of the country doesn't want Roe v. Wade overturned. So abortion is this weird issue in this country where they've been talking about getting rid of it for about 30, 40 years now. Or the voters of the right wing base want to get rid of it, but the politicians know how much of a they use it as a wedge issue. It's not something that I really think that they want to do away with. They just want to use it to get voters. But this law is really weird in that it kind of goes so far, and it deputizes people, just random people that want to make accusations, like you were saying. And I think it's going to blow up in their face completely because it's so ridiculous. And I was reading something that it's like, so it is a Texas law, but they're trying to uphold, I guess, the law on people that are not residents of Texas. So, say like a person in Planned Parenthood or an airline or something like that helps somebody unknowingly get to have an abortion out of state. I believe, from what I'm reading, they want to be able to hold people accountable even if they aren't Texas residents, which is ridiculous on its face. And that alone should force these strict constructionists in the Supreme Court, like Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, uh, that should force them to say, wait a second, this is a states' rights issue, isn't it? Too. You can't hold somebody accountable if they're not in Texas, or at least a resident of Texas. Texas can't force its state laws on other states. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, strict construction is the right wing judges, the right wing judicial philosophy is the end justifies the means. I've said for years, originalism is an absolute bullshit concept. It's something they made up to pretend to have the moral high ground. I'm very comfortable saying that they will throw their alleged ideals out the window in a minute if it's going to get them what they want. But in this case, it is a little too complicated. I mean, look at the window they're opening. Gun manufacturers,
Yeah.
nothing's stopping New York, right, from making this insane version of this law and turning it against anyone involved in the gun industry, right?
Well,
This
it's Pandora's box. Like, actually, it seems like a Manchurian bill. It's like, this is gonna make you look terrible to the rest of the country. One, it's gonna rally up the left wing base to vote in the midterms, and it's just kind of ridiculous on its face. Like, how can you just give accusers kind of this blanket power, with a monetary like incentive, because there's a $10,000 reward, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is America, right? You're putting a $10,000
Yeah.
bounty on people's
Oh,
heads
you put
with
money on
no due
something, so they're coming.
process. There's someone's going to turn this into a business, right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
going to.
yeah.
I just hope. I think they go low, we go high. Forget it, right? We
Oh,
cannot have a political system where one side plays by one set of rules, the other one doesn't. I hope we weaponize this first, right? I hope there's somebody out there who understands that how to build some sort of AI mechanism and to just turn this against them. Don't wait for them to turn it into an industry. Use this to fucking ruin Republican lives systematically.
use the
I
algorithm.
think use the algorithm to be absolutely ruthless in using this bill against them. they need to back away from this with their tail between their legs. And
Yes, absolutely.
just saying this is wrong and protesting the injustice of it is only going to get you so far. Actually, using Frankenstein against Dr. Frankenstein, if that analogy makes any sense, don't run from it, weaponize it, and turn it around on them. I think that's the only way to go in general dealing with the right wing.
Well, I've
But,
already seen on the Reddit sphere, YouTube sphere, people like, wait a second. If anybody can accuse anybody, then
yeah,
we can
I
accuse you
mean,
too.
yeah, and there's already somebody on TikTok already wrote a program to generate random zip codes and like names from people in that zip code. Like this can be weaponized against the right, and I think it has to be, and it has to be used to absolutely flood the courts. It's just turned it into a debacle. Do not, we all remember Trump's comeback in Tulsa, where Herman Cain got sick, and the TikTok kids bought 1 million tickets, and then no one showed up. They do
That's
that
the
again,
best.
right? Can weaponize their monstrosities against them.
Weaponize their own ignorance against them. It's great. It's a great idea.
Yeah,
But
you
there was
know,
no. It's you. You go for it.
so Trump grew the Republican coalition. In part, it's ironic that the evangelical base loved him so much because part of the reason he was able to grow the Republican Party was because here's this guy from New York who's paid for 30 abortions. Um,
Allegedly.
there's at least, right? He's probably triple digits here, at least caused. This is a guy who there's a lot of Republicans who are not so into the anti-abortion thing, and I think that's what the religious fundamentalists in Texas are
Well, yeah,
forgetting. Like,
63% of Americans aren't Democrats, so
yeah,
the
yeah. I mean,
independents
there's
are a
like,
huge. Also, independents are a huge chunk that we often forget about. So,
and then there put places like Fort Worth, Texas, Denton, Texas, like all the suburbs of the DFW metroplex, the suburbs of Houston. There's a lot of a breed of Republican that is going to be really, really turned off by this bill. And the part of the reason the Republican Party was collapsing before Trump at the national level was because of abortion, right? And he was smart enough to be a pro-choice. I just said Trump was smart enough, but he was a pro-choice Republican. He said abortion's not going to be my thing. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. That helped him win. Had he latched onto abortion in 2016, he would have been absolutely destroyed. And so yeah, this is electoral poison for the GOP. They have to hope the mechanisms they have in place to suppress and overturn elections is strong enough to account for the fact that this is absolutely going to cost them at the ballot box.
yeah, it's a toxic topic. The people that want it completely outlawed, even like cases of rape and incest and those sort of, they're a very small subset, even in Republicans. And you're right. Trump did kind of back away from the abortion issue. He did mention like, "Oh, I'm pro-life" a couple times. I'm like, I don't believe you, but yeah, that
Yeah,
wasn't something that he kind of went out there and aggressively talked about a lot. But I don't know. But
yeah. I mean, look, Texas GOP. That's the dog that caught the car, right? They
yeah,
chased it and
what
they
what do
chased
you
it.
do? It's like the
What do
Joker
you
in
do?
fucking Dark Knight. What do you do when you catch it?
What do So I sincerely hope this is going to blow up in their face, but we shouldn't sit around and wait for that to happen.
Well, true. Also, remember that Republicans and hypocrisy kind of go hand in hand. It's the opposite of an oxymoron. So they won't care if this makes them look bad. They'll just look for a way to spin it as, Democrats wanted to kill babies or something like that. So, be on the lookout for those
Yeah.
sort of things.
But if it costs you 5% of female GOP voters, that's
Not
that's a
politically expedient.
huge problem. Yeah, and that's not a lot, right? I mean, there's the GOP, believe it or not, is still almost 50% women. White women are terrible voters. They vote like 52% Republican in national elections. You get that down to 48%, forget it. They can't hold on.